Lily Pierce.
Hi, Anthony.
So excited to finally talk about the good news.
Yeah, good news.
Very good news. Well, let's
News.
just start with the billboard. Where
Sure,
are you going to drama school this fall? What are you studying? Talk to us.
sure. I will be attending the Juilliard School's drama division this fall, which feels so crazy to say. I will be studying to earn my Bachelor's of Fine Arts in drama acting. And I could not be more excited.
I am so excited for you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So our audience is here listening. They don't know maybe anything about you. So what I'm going to do is I want to ask you questions that are a mix of like really practical things, like literally like where are you from and how many years of experience, what monologues. Those are kind of just facts on paper,
Right.
but people want to hear that. But also we want to hear, of course, the emotional side of things, your unique journey, the windy road to Juilliard. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we'll have a healthy mix, all right?
sounds good.
First, why don't we start with the basics? Where are you located?
Yeah.
Obviously, talk to us about your experience in acting before auditioning this year.
Right. So, hi, I'm Lillian Pierce, or Lily. I'm 17 years old, and I was born and raised on Cape Cod, Massachusetts, which is a little peninsula, the easternmost part of Massachusetts. And I currently go to boarding school in the western part of the state at a place called Deerfield Academy, kind of in the rural boondocks of western Massachusetts, but it's a lot of fun. And I've really been acting since I was probably 5 or 6 years old. Nothing fancy. My first role was the gingerbread baby in the gingerbread baby, my kindergarten school play, based off of the picture books by the author Jan Brett.
I saw
Um,
you in that, just so much emotional power and
right, thank you.
texture in your performance. I could tell immediately. We would have to coach you in 20 years. Yeah, no. Uh,
Well, here we are.
there you go. It clearly stuck.
Yeah, my mom always says that that's kind of when the bug bit me, and I was, wearing a little t-shirt running around stage, and I just totally loved it, and I just kind of lit up, and my teacher sat down and spoke with my parents and said, I do this every year with my class. We put on our little school play, but your daughter just really, really kind of has a spark for it and really loves to do it. So maybe it's something that you could think about encouraging with her. So my parents did the following year when I was old enough, they enrolled me at just a creative drama class at my local theater company. And all throughout first and second grade, like my Saturday morning creative drama one class at the Harwich Junior Theater, Cape Cod Theater Company, that was like the thing I was most excited for of my week. My teacher's name was Miss Emily, and we actually just connected over messages yesterday. It was a very surreal moment getting to speak with my first acting teacher. Um, and I just, yeah, I totally fell in love with it. And I don't know, I had so much fun doing that throughout elementary and middle school. And then I was cast in my first production at that same theater when I was 7 or 8. And then I just performed in these really fun productions at my local community theater all throughout elementary and middle school. Um, we kind of got the best of both worlds at Cape Cod Theater Company because yes, it's a local community theater, but we have a lot of relationships with theaters in Boston. So the first directors who cast me in my first show were actually two of the co-founders of the Wheelock Family Theater in Boston.
Oh yeah.
So we have a lot of professional equity folks coming down from there, and there were elements of just really fun community theater, but also a pretty professional kind of strong basis. And so I really got to work with a lot of neat people throughout elementary and middle school. Um,
And
Middle
then tell me,
school,
because when I met you, you were talking about your high school experience and your high school teacher,
yeah,
obviously being brief, but like, did your I know because I know you had a background in athletics too. You're a very
yeah,
high performing athlete, or
yeah,
you have some really great accolades in that regard. So
yeah,
you're still exploring life as a human,
right,
as a little elementary or middle school girl. You're like, what am I going to do? Obviously, you have passions, but like, there's new things that come along, like your athletics. So, how did your high school acting teacher kind of shape like your path beyond high school?
right. So in middle school, Actually, right at the beginning, I was only 11. I lost my dad to suicide. And so I took kind of a sharp left turn from acting and arts and feeling and emotion. I was like, I can't do any of that anymore. So I actually started rowing and I became this little like athlete and I just totally fell in love with that. It was a really good physical outlet. And then that's what led me to boarding school to pursue a varsity rowing career. Did not happen. I was lucky enough to row on the varsity team as a freshman, and I did have a really incredible experience. We got to go to New England's. But that same year, I took an acting class with my teacher that you mentioned. Her name is Mrs. Hines, and she has just been my mentor and my guiding light throughout high school. And we had done a monologue assignment in class. And she just kind of sat me down afterwards and she said, I know you're a rower, but this you have something and you should really think about pursuing it more. So I really took that to heart and I left rowing the next year and just kind of went full theater and full speech and debate. And from my sophomore to senior year, it kind of transitioned from I'm doing this for fun and performing in a high school play to I'm really kind of falling in love with the craft and the artistry and the work of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to do this beyond high school. So I kind of transitioned from, like I said, my sophomore, junior year, wanting to probably pursue a liberal arts education in college, study something like journalism or English, but still get to do theater, as a minor or concentration and as kind of on the side. I kind of transitioned from wanting to do that to really getting into the idea of really just following my dream and pursuing drama school to pursue my ultimate dream, which is to pursue a career in the performing arts industry.
Yeah. So exciting. So some mental barriers to kind of like overcome or like just creating your own possibility in your own mind that something is even possible. And
Yeah.
it's really, really great that you are surrounded by people who encourage you and stuff. I want to take a little credit because I
Yes.
hear I want to hear you tell our audience what was your school list like when you and I first met? And I asked you, what schools are you thinking about applying to? Tell me what that list was versus
Yeah. So I think towards the beginning of this school year when I first spoke with you over the phone, I really thought that I wanted kind of a more liberal arts-based BFA. So that would have maybe been NYU or BU or even Syracuse, just, really strong programs housed within a larger kind of R1 university. Um,
what was the mentality behind that? What was the thinking or the philosophy that was like attracting you to that?
because I thought
It
that
was
that was,
legitimate, by the way. People that's
yeah.
beneficial to certain people, and I was listening to you.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of had some doubts with myself as a performing artist. And, if you tell anyone that you want to go into the performing arts industry or you want to be an actor, it's always, oh, well, you better have a backup. And so that was kind of my mentality. I wanted to play it safe. I wanted to be conservative. I wanted to maximize my chances of getting into a good school that I was excited to attend. And so those are really incredible programs that are perfect for the right person. But I think I was doing it because I thought that's what I should have wanted. I thought that I was supposed to want to do a double major in journalism or, take on a minor in communications. I just thought that that was the more safe, kind of practical thing to do. And I didn't think that I ever had a shot at getting into a program like Juilliard or Carnegie Mellon or UNCSA or all of these incredible programs that now today I'm so, so fortunate to have gotten offers from. 6 months ago, I never would have seen that happening. But when I hopped on the phone with you and you heard a little bit about my story and just kind of my process and perspective as an actor, I literally wrote it down in my college audition binder. You told me there is no place for you except a top drama school. And hearing that from you in conjunction to with everything that my mentors at school were telling me, like you do actually have a shot at these programs, that's when I kind of bit the bullet and I was like, I'm not gonna go for the more conservative route. I am just gonna pour everything into my work and see what happens.
Wow.
And here we are.
Holy cow. I mean, you just blew that out of the water. I mean, like, it's not like you just got into one top school, you know? You really put the time and effort in, as I sensed when I first talked to you, and I understood the investment that you had in this. Um, the culture at these top schools, it really fosters that sort of mentality, this all in. And you were willing to back it up with your work ethic and your imagination. You were able to take direction well in coaching sessions and just continue to use your own instrument, your own voice, your own humanity, and
Yeah.
clearly, discover new levels, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I had so much fun in coachings. And I think when I first pursued coaching with how to get into drama school, I basically had my pieces. I had most of my pieces picked out. And they were in like a good place. Like I would have been able to walk into an audition room and do them and get by and be fine. But were the pieces active? No. Were they, at the place that I knew they could and should be to get into these top programs? No. And so it was a lot of technical work of like treating a monologue really as an active dialogue between yourself and a target or another character rather than just, an internal kind of speech, which is very much how I've performed monologues the past several years. And I don't know, just getting to I think I did a total of 16 college auditions, and not once did I do the monologues, the same time. They were different every time. And it took me a little bit of time to realize that throughout coachings that there is no right or wrong way for a certain text to be performed. And something that I just learned this past weekend at Callback Weekend from Richard Feldman, um, no good playwright tells you the answer at the end of a play. And I think I used to approach acting in this very intellectual, black and white, right or wrong way. Um, but when acting, and I think especially in an audition room, you cannot be intellectual, you cannot be in your head. You just have to be in your body and kind of listen to your instinct and listen to what the text is telling you. And being able to do coachings and just for an hour straight do the piece without thinking and let whatever come up. That was so helpful in preparing
Yeah.
for the audition
Yeah,
room.
just going through that experience and feeling what that's like in your own body, it gives you a little more confidence when you go into the actual audition room where there's already another layer of nervousness and, all that stuff. At least you can get rooted back into what it's like to like have an active dialogue versus just do some robotic pre-planned thing, right? Uh,
Yeah.
so well articulated. I love everything you just said. That's just really great. All right, let's get some facts out of the way.
Okay.
All right. So you already said you auditioned for 16 schools.
Yes, and I
Uh,
applied to a total of 23.
oh, okay. Um, and was it a mixture of US and outside of US, or was it all US?
It was all US. Um,
Okay.
I was planning to apply to a few outside of the US, but I was having a lot of success with my pre-screens for schools in the US, and that meant scheduling a lot of auditions throughout January and February. Um, and it just kind of got to the point where I was really happy with the options that were kind of presenting themselves in front of me in the States. And doing auditions abroad actually probably wouldn't have been possible because this Friday I'm flying to Malaysia to compete in the World Speech and Debate Championships. So I'm going to be in Malaysia during much of the time period that those abroad schools are going to be holding their final rounds of callbacks.
Okay.
So I ultimately decided that it was probably just easiest to stick to US schools, but
Cool. Okay, great. And then I'm just thinking of some rapid fire questions. How many monologues did you end up preparing?
6.
Okay. Can you tell us the names of them? Names of the
Yeah.
play and the playwright?
Yes. Let's see. Alma from Summer and Smoke by Tennessee Williams. May from You Got Older by Claire Barron. Way earlier on in the audition process, I did a Medea piece by Euripides, adapted by Liz Lockhead. Shakespeare, Lady Anne from Richard III by William Shakespeare. Joan La Pucelle from Henry VI by William Shakespeare. And I think I also had a Nikki Silver comedy piece, I think Amanda from the Food Chain. But I didn't really end up using that one in the way I thought I would.
Yeah, usually, go ahead.
And Grace from Radium Girls by D.W. Gregory.
Very cool. Very cool. I always like hearing the names of the plays, and just like what literature were you attracted to? Oftentimes an actor can chew on good quality literature a lot more than if they choose a piece that's like, not even from a play, or if it's just a standalone monologue or not necessarily by a great writer. So it's good. I mean, all those are great writers and great pieces of literature, and it allows you to sort of endlessly explore it so that it feels like you, but you're also honoring the great circumstances and the
Yeah.
text.
Yeah.
And did you feel that way? Did you feel like you found um, a good mix of like I'm honoring the text, but I'm also this is my Alma, this is my Lady Anne. Did you feel like a
Yeah.
healthy mix?
Yeah, and I think towards the beginning of the process, I was like, I really just want to serve the playwright and I want to serve the text and I want to serve the circumstances to the play and there is a right or a wrong way to do this, which, if you're putting on a full-length production of Richard III, absolutely. But when you're in an audition room working with a text like that, and you need to be really active and make bold choices and just let whatever circumstances are at play influence you, I think I came to discover throughout the process that it's a little bit different than if you were putting on a full-length production of Summer and Smoke or Radium Girls.
Right,
Um,
right. Such a great distinction. I'm so glad you said that, and I want to like reiterate that for our audience. You are not auditioning for the play, right?
right.
You are auditioning for drama school, and you're
Yeah.
using this monologue as a showcase for your own talent. So it's
Yeah.
not like you have to be what Lily just said, everyone who's listening. You don't have to be overly obedient to necessarily like the way it would be in the production. You
Yeah.
um, you certainly want to honor the circumstances and let the great literature influence your performance, but at the end of the day you have to be flexible to like bring yourself, your unique voice and humanity and imagination to it. And so you're saying that you kind of discovered more and more of that along the path.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you need to have a relationship to the piece that allows you to be flexible in that way. Um, for my Summer and Smoke piece, for example, this past weekend for Juilliard callback weekend, they did ask a few of us to bring in our pieces one last time or to bring in a piece. And so I ended up bringing in my Summer and Smoke piece for the panel of like over 20 people. And I did it. And Richard Feldman said, I'm going to just totally change the circumstances on you, Lily. You're not in John's office. You're leaving church and it's a Sunday morning and the whole town is there. And you're trying to talk to this guy that you're in love with, and you cannot let him get down that street. You have something to say to him, and everyone needs to hear it. And I did this piece, which, is written to be very dramatic and kind of sad, but all of a sudden, following that direction and changing the circumstances and allowing the piece to kind of have some levity, everyone in the room was laughing. And I was kind of like, whoa, is that supposed to happen? But because I had a relationship with a piece that was so comfortable, it allowed me to be flexible and to just on the fly kind of take that direction and change the circumstances a little bit and um, let the piece go there where I wanted to
Yeah,
go on that day. And
crazy.
it was awesome.
That is awesome. That is awesome, awesome, awesome. I love that. And it's definitely harkens back to a truth that all of us who got into Juilliard, at least, I know a lot of people who are my classmates and whatnot, we all often hear the same thing, which is at some point in the audition, we were open enough to like let the piece just we were open to discover something new in the room. You
Yeah.
what can easily hold us back, and this goes for everybody who's auditioning, whether it's the first audition or the callback weekend in the final rounds, at some point, if you kind of think there's a certain way this has to be done, there's a way that can just restrain you. It can not reveal your real talent.
Yeah.
These schools want to see if we can get into if it's going to be a good 4 years with you of training and adapting and trying new things in your work, right? And so they're just using this literature as you experienced as a way to see if you're flexible,
Yeah.
and you have such a great relationship with that piece, you said, that it allows you to just try,
Yeah.
and you
It was
discovered
so
something new
fun.
in the room.
Yeah.
So great. So
Thank
great.
you.
All right, let's see. I have my little notes here. I want to stay. Um, okay, great. So let's talk about what happened in the room. So first audition, like, and you can use Juilliard. That's kind of the focus here. But if you want to
Sure.
mention something else, um, when you're going into your first auditions, what was your experience like? Did you feel confident? Did you feel nervous? How did you handle the moment? Did you interact with other auditioning students? Did you kind of
Mhm.
keep it laser focused? What was your approach?
I would say probably a happy medium between interacting with others and also just kind of taking the time in the space that I needed to. Like I brought out my binder a little earlier, and so something that I would do at each of these auditions was just journal a little bit about what headspace I was in, what headspace I was feeling as the character, what is the intention or the objective of that character in that piece that day. And just kind of like jotting that down in like my loose leaf paper in this binder. That was really
This is kind of
helpful.
while you're in the audition waiting room area?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so just kind of going back and forth between doing that to stay focused, but then also, socializing with the person next to me and like, hey, did you take the train in? Where'd you fly from? That kind of thing. There were a couple moments, um, even at Juilliard where people were talking about what pieces they were doing. And it was in one of the final callback rounds that day that I auditioned in January, and, there was another applicant, and I could just tell, she's very talented, very focused. She was applying as an MFA candidate, and she had mentioned that she was doing Alma from Summer and Smoke, and so a little kind of alarm bell went off in my head. I was like, "Oh, no, that's my piece, and I bet she's so good." So instead of staying there and kind of engaging in that conversation with that big group of people, I was like, this isn't the headspace that I need to be in right now. I'm going to go use the restroom. I'm going to splash a little bit of cold water on my face. And I'm just going to remind myself that she's going to bring something totally different to the piece than what I'm going to bring. And I just kind of need to remain truthful and, authentic to myself. So I think I did really enjoy conversing with some of the other applicants, but when it gets into that slippery slope of like talking about pieces and potential comparison, that's kind of when I would step out a little bit. And that ended up being really
Brilliant.
helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Such a great, just self-discipline is the only word that comes to mind. But yeah, like you do have to have some like discipline mentally because things you see in that new environment can potentially jar you if you don't have the sort of backbone, you know.
Yeah.
So really good. And it's funny how like every choice we make ultimately influences our outcomes. Everything matters.
Mhm.
So try to be intentional. My message to our audience is always try to be
Yeah.
intentional. What works best for you?
Yeah.
Stay true to that. But that's a really great story. Anything artistically in the rooms, whether it was your first audition or the end of day callback or callback weekend, that was just like a light bulb or a really embarrassing moment. How about both? Maybe your best moment and
Sure.
your worst moment, like
Okay.
in the actual audition room performing.
Sure. I'll use Juilliard as an example. There were 135 people there on the day that I auditioned. I think 19 of us made it to the first round of callbacks. And in that first round callback, I think they brought in like 7 or 8 panelists. Richard Feldman was one of them. And I did both of my pieces. And he said, Lily, I have an adjustment for Lady Anne. Whose body is in front of you? And I said, it's my deceased father-in-law, Henry. And he said, okay, I want you to kneel down next to the body and just feel what it is to kneel over a dead body. And I started to cry.
Hmm.
I started to cry because I do know as Lily, what it's like to share that space with a dead body. And I know that that sounds really, really morbid, but it's the truth. And being able to connect with that in that way for the first time, not only with that piece, but just in an acting kind of environment, and to do it in front of a panel of 7 or 8, Juilliard acting faculty members, but feeling so safe and like liberated to do so. That was kind of one of the first big light bulb moments. And I performed the piece in a way that I had never performed it before. And it felt so grounded and connected and genuine. And I remember walking out of that room and kind of looking over my shoulder a little bit, and Richard was smiling and jotting something down. And then I was one of 11 to make it to the second round of callbacks. Um, and then I think of that 11, I was one of 7 to make it to interviews. And I got to sit down with Kathy, Evan, Richard, Derek, and just kind of chat about the work a little bit and what the day was like. Um, and
Cool.
they were so lovely, and we had a great conversation. And then a few weeks later, I got the news that I'd been invited to Final Callback Weekend. Um, and then that was just this past weekend. I'm trying to think of a bad, embarrassing moment.
Or a tough moment where you're like kind of off your game or like on
Sure.
your heels. Like, I didn't expect that. Sometimes it can be crazy what they ask you to do or just the environment,
Yeah, partnering class was kind of tough.
partner in
Um,
class.
yeah, with Orlando. Um, yeah, that was kind of tough just because I think it's so much of being able to physically lean on another person, but also that kind of emotional trust that comes with time and ensemble building. And when we had, Saturday was a full day of class. We had 3 hour and 50-minute long classes in the morning. I think it was voice with Kate, improv with Richard, movement with Dawn, which was pretty hard. Um, then we had lunch, and then partnering with Orlando, um, voice with Patrick, and then physical comedy.
For the last one.
And we
Still
and
got enough in you to do some physical comedy?
And we had to come up with these kind of like partially improv songs about things that we're scared about. And we're singing to Orlando and Kathy and Evan and like everyone on the faculty. And so I'm up there singing like, this is a really good way to see if we're willing to be vulnerable. Well, singing is vulnerable for me. I have a hard time, but that's why I want to train in a BFA program for the next 4 years. So I really kind of tried to embrace that, and we were able to have some fun laughs in the room. But I think the end of that day, it was incredible, and I learned so much just from kind of being in that space with those people. But I just absorbed so much from the faculty teaching those
Mhm,
classes.
mhm.
Um, I did have a couple moments, Anthony, where I was like, would I be able to handle this for the next 4 years?
Like just the intensity or yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Being in class and in rehearsal for 12 hours, 5 days a week, and then another 6 hour rehearsal on Saturday. I was like, this, if I were to get in, this would be a lot to take on as an 18-year-old pursuing an undergraduate degree. And so it was kind of an affirmation to me. Like, I know that this is the kind of program that I need to train in for the next 4 years because I, in a way, kind of do want that sense of discomfort. And I know that that discomfort and that feeling of really being pushed and really being stretched for the next 4 years, that's a kind of program that's going to allow me to grow and train the way that I know I need to if I want to really improve, um, and hopefully pursue a career in the industry. So I think,
definitely like a deliberate extreme. It's
yes,
you know you're getting into it. You go into it with the understanding.
yeah.
You know?
And that callback weekend very much kind of provided me with that. And I think I was able to ask myself the right questions of, is this something that I want to do? Is this something that I really feel that I'm ready for? And if I gathered anything from speaking with the current students, they were like, no one's ever ready for Juilliard. No one's ever really ready for an
We're still figuring it out.
experience. Yeah, I mean, I was,
Honestly, yes, because it's always about, all right, what next skill can I build? Or what habit can I let fall away, which I've been clinging to for the last 10, you know what I'm saying? So like there's always new uncomfortable things that you're trying to face in order to, yeah, be the most versatile artist you can be.
yeah,
Yeah, it's definitely amazing training. Um, so this has been so cool just to hear about what happens in the room and all that stuff, and like, um, obviously what happened leading up. Was there anything, just because we haven't touched on it, I want to at least let you, you know, speak about applications. Was there
sure.
anything that you would share in terms of your experience with applications, headshots, resumes, essays?
Yeah, yeah. They're definitely important. Um, I applied to 23 schools, and I think that ended up being a good move. Like my mom, for example, was like, "Why would you do that to yourself?" I'm really happy with the way that it went because I was able to cast such a wide net and get some really great options under my belt before even walking into that room at Juilliard, and having that sense of comfort and security somewhat, and knowing that not everything was riding on this one audition, ultimately took off a lot of pressure. And I know that that's something you've said throughout this process is don't get too caught up in writing your supplemental essays, don't get too caught up in the applications because ultimately at the end of the day, your work is what's going to get you in. And that ended up being very, very true. But I think because I was able to front load a lot of that work over the summer and even in the fall, like there would be days in September, October, November that I would just kind of like lock myself in my room for a Saturday and just knock out a ton of supplemental essays,
Oh, great.
just so that, when the crunch time kind of rolled around in December, I could really just focus on the pieces and focus on the work and just, getting them on their feet, and have that burden kind of, taken care of. So I think it was important for me to be able to strike kind of a happy medium and to get those, like you said, the headshot and the resume. I was able to take care of all of that over the summer. So I didn't really have to worry about it on top of my
Hmm.
pieces.
Yeah, that's so great. Having perspective with how much time to spend on application materials versus how much time to spend on rehearsing and improving your pieces is a big deal, just because you got to look at your days and your weeks. And when you look back on the last month, did you really feel like your pieces improved, or did you feel like you just kind of stayed on the little paperwork, which doesn't carry as much weight as the actual performance? So, um, I was going to ask you because Shakespeare you mentioned, and I know you've had some experience with Shakespeare, but you also got to work with Gary Logan, one of our coaches, who's a faculty member at Carnegie Mellon.
Yeah.
What was your experience like growing your Shakespeare pieces? Did you discover anything, or how did that confidence build?
Yeah, the confidence definitely built a lot. Both in actively getting to work with Gary in those sessions, but also the how to get into Shakespeare course that we get access to on demand while we're a part of the coaching. Um, just learning how to properly do table work and scansion. And, I was familiar with, being able to look at a piece and go, okay, well, there is antithesis, but I had never really, I don't know, it was really a chance to kind of put that in practice. And I built a lot of comfort with Shakespeare in a way that I really needed to be able to succeed in the audition process the way that I did. And also just getting a little bit of, historical knowledge from Gary and Joan La Pucelle. What does Pucelle mean? Pucelle, puzzle. That means whore, maid. That's how Joan was viewed kind of within the Shakespearean realm, not the Joan of Arc that we are familiar with today. So it was really interesting and even just getting to sit down and properly scan the pieces with Gary. Like the text that I had been working with, some of the punctuation was off and the apostrophes were placed inappropriately. So like I was saying congealed in my Lady Anne piece as like congealed, and that kind of threw off the verse a little bit. So actually really settling into the iambic pentameter and respecting the verse of the text really, really, really helped propel the acting in the audition.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that there at the end because I think that sometimes people disconnect the actual technical work and script analysis and all that stuff with the acting of it. No, it supports better acting. You know, like if
100%.
you just look at it as a purely academic exercise, nobody's going to give you an A plus because you did the right things on the piece of it. It's all for practical application in your performance. And like you said, when you realize how when you respect what's there and you see what's there, it opens up your imagination in a way that like you can play more full out, And so I just thank you for making that connection for us that it helped your acting. You
Yeah.
Now, would you agree that you don't necessarily need to understand what iambic pentameter is in order to get into drama school, but that it helps you with, confidence and stuff? Would you
Yeah.
say that's true?
Yeah. I wouldn't say that it's a black and white need. I mean, not all drama schools require a Shakespeare piece. Um, but in my experience with those schools like Juilliard, CMU, UNCSA, that definitely want to see one, if not two, strong classical texts, being able to have that sense of confidence and kind of flexibility with classical material ended up being so helpful to me. And even just learning to have that kind of technical grasp on a piece of text ultimately ended up being very helpful to my other pieces that
Right.
were in classical.
So true.
That level of authenticity and specificity about the text and the circumstances that a Shakespearean text requires. And again, on a technical level, like the level of breath support that you're needed to, scream at Richard as Lady Anne, like that kind of introduced me to this whole new world of like, how do I properly warm up my voice and body before going into that audition room? And so for me, that looked like doing a lot of wall sits and a lot of ab work and really just kind of engaging that part of my body. And in learning that I had to do that for Shakespeare, that obviously ended up helping with Alma and all of my other pieces as well.
Yes. I love that you kind of made the like working on Shakespeare helped your overall artistry.
Hmm.
And we tell people that. We definitely tell people that, as you know. But yeah, it's kind of sounding like you're, recognizing acting as like a full contact sport, you
Oh
know.
my gosh. Yeah, and I used to be a varsity athlete. And I remember when I left rowing, I was like, okay, well, I don't really have to be athletic anymore.
Wait till you do some of these movement classes at Juilliard.
Oh my gosh, even that movement class with Dawn, I felt like I was a varsity athlete again. And a part of me was like, wow, I think I did kind of miss this. And I'm really excited to train for the next 4 years in a way that's going to force me to kind of tap back into that sense of athleticism and
Yeah. The best artists use their entire selves. So, to minimize your athleticism or to minimize your intellectual prowess, like anything, no, you're going to be challenged in all regards. Um, Let me see here because this has been such a great conversation, so easy to talk to. Thank you for sharing everything. This has been super awesome. Um, knowing what you know now, I wanted to ask if there's anything you would have done differently. Would you have started later? Would you have started earlier? Would you have chosen different monologues? Would you have applied to more schools, less schools, different schools? Would there be anything different that you would do? Hard to say that there would be because the outcome was so great, but
I think I would have stressed out less.
you stressed out a lot.
Yeah, I did stress out a lot. I don't want to say that it took a few years off my life, but like maybe. There, I will be perfectly candid. Like there were some moments earlier on in January before I even stepped foot in an audition room. I did have some auditions for like my early action schools back in October, November, but for that, stretch of January, February auditions before I had even stepped into a room, um, I mentioned my teacher and mentor, Mrs. Hines, earlier, and I had just randomly caught her in passing. And I think that weekend I had three auditions in New York, and she said, Lily, and she has this gorgeous accent. She's like, "You seem a bit off. What's going on?" And I lost it. I completely lost it. I was like, "I'm so stressed out and I feel like I don't know what I'm doing." And of course, I was like clutching my pink binder. She was like, "Put the binder down." She was like, "You need to put the binder away. You need to close your laptop. You need to go get some sleep because you're driving yourself crazy." And that sense of control, I think, in a way, ended up being helpful. And like you said, did end up yielding some positive results. But I think I just stressed myself out a lot more than I needed to. And at the end of the day, the stress and the pressure, it's not going to do you any good. Um, it's funny, like once I was there in those audition rooms, in the waiting rooms, I was really kind of able to like let go and relax. But I think it was like the weeks leading up to it when I was on campus at my boarding school or in my dorm room. Do I have everything I need? Do I have my train ticket, et cetera, et cetera? That's kind of where my stress came from.
What's crazy is you don't have an office manager. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to be the one to put on all the different hats and make sure all the logistics are in place and then also be a great talent. Like and let your talent run free like when it's time.
Yeah.
You are everything in this process. Like yes, you have support people that can guide you, but ultimately like no one's clicking buy the train ticket. No one's walking into the room except you.
Mm.
And you uh, my point is like I'm hearing this and obviously I'm totally harkening back to my breakdowns. I had multiple breakdowns, during I was also 17 in high school when I was auditioning. So like, yes. But it's not necessary. I don't know you personally that well like outside of this coaching dynamic, but like I don't hear that it's a controlling thing. What I hear is that the commitment level is so high
Yeah.
and obviously it's not time to audition yet. Exactly. The commitment level is so high and the audition happens on a specific day. Every day leading up to that, you know, the intensity, the vibration, you're just fully committed. And guess what? That allows you to go into that room and if they make you feel comfortable, it allows you to actually settle in because there's nothing more you could have done to prepare fully. Like I did everything I could. So if
Yeah.
you're telling me to take a breath, if you're telling me to pretend I'm coming out of the church, I'm gonna just because I
Be
couldn't
there and do
anything
it. Yeah.
exactly. I couldn't have prepared any more fully. Like I was gonna ask you when you told us that story about the coming out of the church and the adjustment that Richard gave you.
Yeah.
Like, is there anything you could have done in coaching sessions or on your own to ever prepare you for that adjustment?
No.
No.
No, except for just doing the work of being present and taking care of myself and being able to trust the text and let go. Flexing that muscle for me personally did take some practice. But there's nothing I could have done to specifically prepare to receive that adjustment besides
Exactly.
just learning to go with the flow and not clench the pieces.
Right. So good. I love that you were able to just be present, but when you're breaking down and stuff, like it's not a bad thing. It's not that we like promote it or oh, you're gonna get in because you had a breakdown prior to your audition. That's not true. But the commitment level is definitely something we all have in common, and you should be
Yeah.
continuing with that.
Thank you. And then on the topic of breakdowns, I know I mentioned this to you when I called you a couple days ago, right after getting the news. When I got that phone call from Kathy and Evan, it's so funny. They're so sweet on the other end of the line. Kathy's like, is this a good time to chat? I was like, yeah, yeah, this is a great time to chat. She's like, great, because I have Evan here with me. I was like, hi, Evan. How are you? How are you doing? And Evan's like, I'm doing great because it's my pleasure on behalf of the drama faculty to invite you to join group 58. And I broke down. I was sobbing on the other end of the phone. I probably sounded like an idiot. And it looking back looks very, very overdramatic, but in that moment it was so genuine because it wasn't just, you got into Juilliard. It was all of the months of preparation and all of the coaching sessions and all of the work paid off. And like you said, that level of commitment, it in that moment, I just kind of felt it release. And then after I got off the phone with him, I just had to sit on the couch with my mom and just cry for 5 minutes because of just the emotional release of it. And it was this very beautiful kind of thing. And being able to just kind of let myself do that was great.
Amazing. It's amazing. And you're going to need the summer to kind of refuel the tank of because now you're about to go in for 4 years of that kind of stuff. It's not like you just got over the hard part and now
Right.
everything's just like it's gonna be
Smooth sailing.
you. Like, you know. So you're gonna have to stay rejuvenated after this Malaysia trip and everything, like
Yeah.
rest up and get ready to dive back in.
Yeah. I'm really, really excited. But I'm also just excited to have a summer on Cape Cod and work on my family's farm and just do normal kind of 17, 18-year-old things like go out and grab coffee with my friends or go for a walk on the beach and just kind of spend that time with myself before, like you said, diving in to the next 4 years.
Did anybody go with you to the actual auditions, like to New York? Were you alone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I have a single mom, and she, works, and I can't just ask her to pick up and go to New York with me for 3 weekends in
How
January.
was that? Did you navigate things okay? Okay. I mean, we
Oh
have
yeah,
this as
I had
well.
a great time. I love solo travel and I had such an incredible support system at school. Faculty members are very close with the students. And when I needed a ride to the train station that was 5, 10 minutes away, I would call up my Spanish teacher or talk to my dorm resident or talk to Mrs. Hines. And, I would get a ride to the station and take the Amtrak or the Greyhound and be in New York within a few hours. And then um, those times that I did stay in the city. One of my dearest friends who graduated from our high school last year and she's in college studying stage management now. She has a wonderful family and they live in Brooklyn and they were kind enough to let me stay with them not only for 2 weekends in January, but also for final callback weekend.
That's great.
And then there was one weekend in January where my mom did come down to New York. It was the weekend of New York Unifieds,
Mhm.
big weekend. I had my purchase audition. I had Carnegie Mellon, UNCSA, and DePaul. So it was a loaded weekend, and my mom was there with me for that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Was that your first time in New York?
So my first time in New York, I was in ninth grade
Okay, okay.
with,
So you
with my
had been,
school. Yeah.
yeah, totally different context, obviously, this time around.
Yeah. But it's
In
not like
June.
I've grown up going to New York, getting to like see shows and spend time there. Like it was a very new realm to me starting in high school, and I would have never been introduced to, I don't know, that life if it weren't for my boarding school education. So very, very grateful for that.
This is awesome. Lily, you have shared so beautifully. This was so like awesome to hear your just journey. And you've articulated it so well. I know you're like in the glow right now of post audition glow. You're a pre drama school glow. It's all glow. Um, I guess the last question we have is obviously, this audience. This audience is preparing for drama school. They are where you were a year ago.
Yeah.
And there's all sorts of personalities out there. People who believe in like overworking, people who believe in like not working too hard, people who believe in like A plus type A, get everything correct. And then other people who are like wild and messy. And that's what's for everybody, and I know you can't like just thinking about all the different types of people that do this and all the different types of people that are going to be in your class and how it's just like about high quality artistic potential. What would you say to them as they go ahead from here in terms of like how to set themselves up for success?
Yeah. I think auditioning for drama school, it's really easy to look at one of those programs like Juilliard and say, "Oh, Juilliard," and get so freaked out. But in my experience there, just for the weekend, there is not an ounce of pretension or ego in the work that they do. It is so laser focused on the craft and the artistry and the work. And throughout the process, I had to kind of take myself and my own ego completely out of the work and just strap down and focus on the work and improving my pieces. So that when I went into those rooms, I was able to say, I am being judged, I guess you could say, or audited, on the basis of not necessarily who I am as a person, not my own ego, not my sense of self, but on my craft and on my work. And being able to focus purely on the quality of that throughout these past several months, I think is what led to my success. Um, and not getting caught up in I'm gonna go audition for Juilliard and Carnegie Mellon and because it's easy to do as a 17-year-old or 18-year-old or really any age going through this process, but just looking at it as, I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna share my work. And it's just looking at it like work.
Yes, that's very profound and so true. So true. It is, this audition is kind of a more pure than like professional auditions, which do often take into consideration a little bit more than just the work, the relationship you may have with one of the producers or, your
Yeah.
natural vibe. But this, it's really like, does this person have high artistic potential? Are we seeing chops like in the room and
Yeah.
someone who can like be malleable and like, is the quality of the work really moving?
Yeah.
And you clearly showed that it was. So congratulations, Lily Pierce.
Thank you. It
And
still feels very, very surreal.
appropriately so. Well, you can pinch yourself or you can, call us for a reality check if you need to. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anything else? I think this was fantastic. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for sharing.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for all of your help throughout this process.
You are so welcome. We will
Or-
talk soon, okay?
Yeah. Stay in touch, Anthony.
All right. Bye, Lily.
Bye.